Platform engineering, internal developer platform are probably words you have heard over the past few years. So, what are those? Why do you need them? And why do you care? I have Nick here with me to talk us through how to build an internal developer platform using GKE Enterprise and Fleets.
Hey there, I'm Nick Eberts. Happy to be here to talk to you about all of the latest and greatest buzzwords in the infrastructure as code and platform building space.
Welcome to Container Bytes. I'm Mofi, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, so this is the first video of a longer series in which we're going to progressively build a platform or internal developer platform is a word you might be familiar with on top of GKE using GKE Enterprise. But why is that important? Why do we even need to build products to help customers build platforms on top of GKE? It turns out that using Kubernetes is not always the best abstraction if you want to have large amounts of dev teams efficiently deploy applications onto Kubernetes. Sometimes it's just overcomplicated for some of the work that we want to do. So what a lot of companies are doing is abstracting away the actual Kubernetes API to a reduced set of API. And then on top of that, what we're seeing too is that customers are centralizing their clusters into a central team who's then administering and handling the deployment of the infrastructure so that they can get the efficiencies of bin packing multiple teams on top of the same clusters. So we're really talking about building multi-tenancy across multiple clusters using GKE fleets and GKE enterprise features.
So, Nick, you mentioned GKE Enterprise and GKE Fleets, and we're going to probably see them today. But before we get to that, do you want to quickly
Yeah.
tell us about what they are?
Yeah, so GKE Enterprise aims to provide an additional set of enterprise capabilities and features on top of GKE. A lot of the features that GKE Enterprise offers revolve around helping customers build platforms on top of GKE. So there are tools and opinions and features of how to deal with multiple clusters, multiple tenants on those clusters, securing those clusters, automatically upgrading those clusters, turning on enterprise grade service mesh and load balancing features. So just think of this as the version of GKE that you want to use if you're building platform. And also I want to make sure that GKE Enterprise works on top of GKE with GCP. It works on VMware. It works on bare metal, and it works on other managed Kubernetes offerings that are out there. You can attach AKS and EKS clusters if you want to. So it's a way to centrally manage a lot of different clusters across a lot of different properties, as well as offer a bunch of features on top of those centrally managed clusters to help you build a platform.
So, while we're on the buzzword train, we can say that if you want to get multi-cloud, GKE Enterprise can help you be multi-cloud.
That's very true. Yes. You can have all the clouds. All right, so we've set the table, and now the rest of this video is just going to be focused on walking you through how to install GKE Enterprise and Fleets inside of the Google Cloud Console, right? So here I am. Hopefully this isn't the first time you've seen a Google Cloud Console. And you can see here that this is just regular GKE right now. I've got two clusters already in here. One of them is sitting in US Central and the other one's in US East. And if I go to the top of this page, you can see that there's a learn and enable section for explicitly calling out how you might want to run critical workloads faster and safer at scale. So if I hit this learn and enable section, it's gonna show me kind of the key value prop of GKE Enterprise and what we're set out to do. It also gives me an option to start your 90-day trial for free. The first 90 days are on us. I'm gonna check this. And then what's nice here is you can take a look at the features and benefits of GKE Enterprise. You can get a nice overview. And you can even get a comparison that will show you the differences between the two and the approximate cost differences. Just keep in mind, this is assuming that you're paying full price, which we all know it's not always the case. So I'm going to go ahead and enable GKE Enterprise here. And I am going to go into this section right here and edit my fleet name or cluster. I'm good with it being called Fleet Prod 1 because this is going to be my prod fleet. But I don't want to enable both clusters straight away. So I'll just pick one. I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to confirm these settings. So once I do this, what's going to happen on the back end is it's going to enable the GKE Enterprise API. And then it's going to register that one cluster that I picked to the fleet. So you can see now I'm in the enterprise section. There's certain features that have little E's on them that will give you a hint as to these are parts of the UI that actually have components that are specific to GKE Enterprise. You can see here that I have two clusters, one registered, one not registered. And the reason I left that other one unregistered because I wanted to take you through the other flow in the UI. So now I already have GKE Enterprise enabled, and I'm going to register the second cluster because I actually need both of these clusters in my fleet. So I'm going to hit register, and it tells you exactly what it's going to do. Register that cluster. And it's basically, there's an API in the backend that is taking that cluster, creating a membership object for that cluster that binds it to the production fleet. So now I have both clusters inside the same fleet. Good to call out here that one of the huge values of fleets is that we have a lot of customers who have projects that are all host production clusters, and they want to bring them together into a central management plane. So with fleets, you can actually then register clusters from different projects into the same fleet and get a single view across all of your production clusters or all of your dev clusters without having to co-locate them in the same project.
So one of the
Yeah.
things you have called out a few times and mentioned it a few times is fleets. And we registered our cluster to a fleet. Can you tell me a little bit more about what fleets are?
Fleets are essentially a really fancy cluster list. Just think about it as a list and a set of metadata about all of the clusters that you want to manage together. When you think of a fleet, you should be thinking of an environment at the least, right? So the simplest example of how you might design fleets would be if you had a dev fleet, a staging fleet, and a production fleet. You would create all of those fleets, and then you would register the respective clusters to the right fleet. And so you could think of them as boundaries within the organization for your application lifecycle. And then as you get more complex, we do know that Conway's law typically wins out, and your fleets end up representing your organization. And so you might have a whole business domain have a set of lifecycle fleets. So business one has dev, staging, prod. Business two also will have dev, staging, and prod. And that's okay. My word of advice for designing fleets is to try to stay big. You get more value out of fleets as they are able to capture more of the clusters that you have to manage because that central pane becomes bigger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's like a logical grouping of your clusters, and the clusters you would want to keep together as well as have some sort of relationship that you want to probably control together as well.
Yeah. And then there's a number of features, which is actually a nice segue that you can enable on top of a fleet, right? So the fleet is the point of aggregation. And then there's a set of capabilities that you can enable on top of a fleet. And there's a number of them that we're going to go over. In fact, we should probably start, and this might be one of the only times that I shell out and go into a terminal. One of the first things I want to show you all is rollout sequencing. So rollout sequencing gives you the ability to take your fleets and ensure that there's an ordering to GKE upgrades on both the control plane and the data plane. And I am going to first enable the dev project, the dev fleet, as the first sequence in my rollouts. And by doing that, you can see here, gcog container fleet cluster upgrade. I'm updating that fleet, and I'm on the fleet for dev. I'm setting the soak time to 1 day. So if I hit enter, that's going to upgrade, and then it's done. Now, in my example, I only have 2 fleets. I've got dev and prod. And so now what I'm going to do is enable the second sequence of the rollout onto the fleet called fleet prod 1, which is the fleet we just created, right? You can see that you have to set an upstream. So the upstream here is dev 1. That's the upstream is the fleet that's going to get upgraded first. And then I'm going to again set the soaking. The soaking here isn't super important up front. It would be important if I were going to add a fleet that the prod cluster is an upstream to.
So in the example we saw earlier, what would happen is dev would upgrade first, then staging would wait for that upgrade to complete, and then prod should wait for staging to complete before doing anything.
Yep, exactly that. And so while I love doing things in G Cloud and Terraform or using some SDK directly, We're going to use the UI as much as possible here. So just that was me in a sideways saying that, hey, all this stuff works if you're doing it infrastructure as code, and you probably are. But we're going to show you how to do all this stuff through the UIs. We've set those sequences, and now what I'm going to do is roll down, right? You get it? Roll to rollout sequencing. And because they're set up, you're going to see that I have this nice UI now that's showing the status of my upgrades. So you can see I've got dev 1, it's completed, and then I have got the soak time and production following. The reason this is all completed is because these clusters are up to date. There's no upgrade for them to get yet. And when you can actually drill into each fleet and see the list of clusters in that fleet. And you could filter by upgrade type, whether it's control plane or data plane, and you could do that by channel, right? So you can see here, I do have some upgrades pending for the control plane 1.28, and they're all pending right now. Once dev completes, then the soak time will kick in and prod will roll out. One other part I want to show too is that you can get like a detailed list of each cluster below as well. So you can see I've got central and east here. And I can see the notifications that I'm getting for the status of each of these clusters in the dev fleet right now that are set to upgrade. Yeah, so pretty handy rollout sequencing, a highly sought after feature from all of our customers. And we're happy that the rollout sequencing itself is GA'd, and the UI bits are trickling in after.
In this video, Nick showed us what GKE Enterprise is, what fleets are, and how rollout sequencing can be a great tool for your applications and your clusters to be upgraded without causing downtime for a production application. In the next video, Nick will show us
Feature Manager. You've got a fleet, which is awesome. You've set up rollout sequencing. Now let's start to turn on some of the features that are going to make your life a whole lot easier using Feature Manager.
We'll share links and other resources about GKE Enterprise and fleets in the description below. If you have any questions, drop us a comment below.